I mean, Dana, you ready? Okay. If you would, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Lord, thank you for our many blessings. Please lead and guide us in our decisions this evening as we prepare to begin a new school year. Keep all our administrators, employees, teachers, and students safe and give them the willingness and desire to have a great learning year. In Jesus' name, amen.
Call the meeting to order. First is roll call.
Chris McKinney.
Here.
Chris Satterfield.
Here.
Carla Willis.
Here.
Skip Willis.
Here.
Terry Warnica.
Here.
All are present.
We just had an executive session, so an executive session was held prior to the regular board meeting this evening, and no other subject matter was discussed in the executive session other than the subject matter that was specified in the public notice. If anybody has any questions on that, they can see me or our board attorney for more information. So with that, next on the agenda is election of board vice president.
And Steve Hamilton was our vice, so we have that vacancy.
I make a motion that Chris Satterfield be our vice president.
I second that motion.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Not all in favor, raise your hand. Opposed?
I'm abstaining.
Okay. All right.
Yay.
Review of finances.
Okay. So the primary items tonight are addressing, we discussed at a work session meeting in June about possibly issuing a bond to help with some funding of items as we finish out the year. So in order to do so, we had to do proper advertising of a project hearing, and then after the project hearing, we also have an additional appropriation hearing. So we have those items ready, and I think, go ahead and Jeff, if you want to present the information for the finances, I'm going to move so everybody can see, okay? Board members, you do have a copy of the PowerPoint there. Yeah. See, okay.
Well, good evening, everyone. I recognize many of you. There's a couple new faces. So I will introduce myself and also kind of the reason why I'm here this evening. My name is Jeff Hammond. I'm with Baker Tilly. We serve as the school corporation's municipal advisor. So we have a fiduciary duty to you as a school corporation, help you navigate the bond issuance process, property taxes, budgeting, and things like that. So my purpose this evening is to talk through the financial parameters that will be in the resolution considered by the board. This is for a project hearing. It's required anytime that a school corporation issues bonds. And it's important to note that the financial parameters that will be in the resolutions and that I will present here, these are maximum numbers, so they are not to exceed numbers. Also, moving forward with this project hearing, it does not require you to issue bonds. It simply gives you the authority to issue bonds at a later time. So I am going to go through first a chart that has the school corporation's currently outstanding bonds. So what we're seeing here is the three bonds that are currently outstanding that the school corporation has. There are the first mortgage refunding bonds, series 2005. Those will mature at the end of this year, so it's the final payment on those bonds. This lighter blue color that you're looking at, those were some general obligation bonds that were issued in 2019. And then this bluer color here that goes through 2043 were the first mortgage bonds that were issued last year to fund the projects that were addressed through those bond issues. So looking at the payment structure, in 2025, the total payments on all three bonds we're at about $1.9 million per year. You can see beginning in 2026, so next calendar year, there's a step down in your annual bond payments of about $200,000. That kind of remains at that level through 2028. And then beginning in 2029, the school corporation will only have those 2024 bonds that are outstanding with an annual payment of about $500,000. So one thing that stands out to me as I look at this, having 3 bonds outstanding with 1 maturing at the end of this year, that is a great spot to be in from a debt service standpoint. There are many schools across the state who might have 15, 20 bonds outstanding. So this just gives you flexibility from a debt service standpoint to strategically manage this and take advantage of some step downs in payments to maybe address additional needs that you might issue bonds for. So I'm going to skip over this next slide because this is just the payments that populated the chart. We just looked at a lot of numbers on a screen, so it's kind of hard to read. But you can see in 2025, payments at about 1.9 million, like I mentioned, and then stepping down next year for 1.7 million for the 2 bonds that will be outstanding at that time. So what this schedule we're looking at here is, it's a calculation of the school's general obligation debt capacity. So I mentioned back in 2019, the school corporation issued general obligation bonds. Last year, the school issued first mortgage bonds. You may remember as a part of that process, there was a building corporation involved. There's a leased premises typically. And a first mortgage bond is a slightly more complicated bond process. From a debt service standpoint, a tax rate standpoint, they're virtually identical, but there are a little more steps involved to issue those bonds. This is your general obligation bonding capacity, and the bonds that we're talking about this evening would be general obligation bonds. And in that case, the difference between first mortgage bond, like what was done last year, and the general obligation bond is that the school corporation is the direct issuer of those bonds. So there's no need to have that building corporation. The legal steps to issue the bonds are a little more straightforward because there's not that lease and there's not that extra holding corporation involved. So why wouldn't a school only issue general obligation bonds? And really that's because of this calculation, this formula that applies to all municipalities in the state of Indiana. And it's a strange formula. I think it came about in the 1800s due to local municipalities going bankrupt, building canals and bridges. So this was a way to kind of restrict that bonding capacity of those local municipalities, and we still have it kind of governing today. So the formula, it's a little strange, but what it does, how you get to the amount that you can issue as a general obligation or GO bond, is to start with the school corporation's net assessed value. That's all of the taxable property within the school corporation's boundaries that the tax rate could be levied off of. And in 2025, that number is $805,748,671. You then divide the net assessed value by 3 and take 2% of that. And what's left over is your general obligation debt limit, which for Pike County, as we sit today, $5,371,658. That is your general obligation debt limit. There's one final step, and that is to subtract out the principal on any currently outstanding general obligation bonds. So I mentioned we've got the 2019 bonds out there. There's currently $3,595,000 left in principal on those bonds. So that has to be subtracted from our debt limit to get your debt capacity that you could issue as a GO bond currently. And that number is $1,776,658. So this number here is how we have arrived at some of the parameters that will be in the resolutions when we're talking about the 2025 or the potential for a 2025 general obligation bond. So I will go over some parameters here, and I will note with these parameters, these are maximums, so these are not to exceed numbers. Could always do less than this in terms of a borrowing amount, but we cannot exceed this amount. And because of this, we've been conservative in how we are estimating these numbers. So we're looking at a maximum borrowing amount of $1,775,000. That aligns pretty closely with your GO capacity that we just looked at. We're estimating that it would generate a little over $1.6 million in proceeds that can be used to address the projects being considered. This is a very conservative number. I would expect this number to be much higher in terms of what's actually generated to be spent. But the difference between the borrowing amount and the proceeds available is because there are issuance costs associated with each time you issue a bond. The bank who ultimately provides the funding to the school corporation will take a percentage of the borrowing amount, and then there are things like our fees as municipal advisors, bond counsel who's involved in issuing the bonds and ensuring that all the legal steps are followed. There are fees associated with that, similar to in your personal life, if you were to take out a mortgage, there are costs associated with that. So again, we are very conservatively estimating this number so that you're not planning on getting more dollars. We don't want you to be in a situation where what you actually receive is less than that. So again, I'll just hit on this being a very conservative estimate at this point, and I would anticipate that to be higher in terms of what the school can generate. We're looking at an estimated repayment term in this scenario I'll share with you here of just over 6 years, 5 months. We've given flexibility to repay these bonds up to a term of 15 years. But what I'll show you today is based on a 6-year repayment. There's always a trade-off with determining the repayment term. If you pay back bonds more quickly, you save an interest cost, but you have a slightly higher annual payment. So what we're showing here is at a 6-year repayment, but again, know that we have flexibility to go up to 15 to repay these bonds. We're estimating the total interest cost, so this will be over the lifetime of that 6-year period of time, to be a little over $422,857. And then the estimated maximum debt service payment on the structure I'll share with you here is $535,160. Perhaps most importantly, are these next two parameters. The estimated increase over the 2025 debt service levy will be 0. We're able to wrap the repayment on these new bonds around to take advantage of that step down in repayments we looked at on the first slide. And we're also projecting that if net assessed value holds in line about where it is this year in 2025, that the estimated tax rate increase would also be 0. It's easier to speak in terms of levy because that is directly within the school corporation's control. The tax rate is dependent on the assessed value, which is more at the county level and based on the property within the school district's boundaries. A little harder to project that out. It's also outside of your control. But if the assessed value was to remain where it is in 2025, we would project there not to be a tax increase in the debt service fund.
So would that result in a decrease overall, since we have greater drop off?
Potentially. So the school corporation's tax rate is made up of the debt service fund and the operations fund. Depending on how much your net assessed value grows will depend on the total rate. Because you can grow your operations fund by 4%. So if net assessed value grows by more than 4, then it would drop. If it grows by less than 4, the tax rate could go up slightly.
What all factors in on that estimated interest cost?
In terms of the interest rates
Yeah.
we've used, we're looking at current rates here, a little over 5%, about 5.1% in terms of that number there. These would be taxable bonds, so it has a slightly higher interest rate than a tax exempt bond like we did last year, but 5.1% blended is what we're factoring.
It just
in
seems-
that number.
When we're looking at bond issuance, that number sticks out to me. It seems awful high.
That's high.
Yeah, from what we've been used to, it seems like to me.
In doing a taxable bond will subject you to slightly higher tax rates. But yeah, about 5.1. And again, that's pretty close to the current market. We'll know after the bonds are sold more what that actual rate will be. But that's how we derived it based on kind of current rates. So my last may have one more after this, but this slide, I just wanted to show, this is a preliminary structure on how these bonds could be repaid. I mentioned we could go up to 15 years on a repayment term. This is looking at a 5-year repayment. And you can see what we've done in 26 through 28 is really keep your total payments level with where they are today, so about 1.9 million. And then there's a step down in 2029 still, but we've amortized the remaining principal over those 3 years from 2029 to 2031. If, for instance, we shortened this repayment term even further, maybe took 2031 out and added it to 29 and 2030, that might help with the total interest cost, because that would shorten the repayment term. So it's certainly something that we can consider as we look at this. But this option here keeps your payments where they are, or where they are currently in 25 for 3 more years, and then gives you still some flexibility in terms of the step down in payment that will be in 2029. This again, the payments that populated that chart that we just saw. And then lastly, I wanted to show this. It's probably going to be more helpful in your handout to take some time with this schedule. But what we've done, you remember that general obligation capacity, it recoups over time as principal is repaid under existing bonds. So what we try to do with this schedule is give you an idea. Here's your 2019 bonds and the payments remaining on those. This is a preliminary amortization schedule of a potential 2025 bond and what the payments are on those. And it shows you over here in your remaining debt capacity how this ability to issue future general obligation bonds changes over time as existing payments are made. So by January 15th of 2032, that would be your final payment on both of these bonds, and you would be able to have available to you that full capacity we looked at on the slide a few minutes ago. That is the last of my slides. What questions can I answer for you all?
Oh, answered everything I needed, so.
That's all I have.
All right.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you. Okay. So now we're at the recommend adoption of project resolution.
It's listed as Exhibit A in your packet. About halfway down the page, it has noted the cost. It says the estimated hard and soft cost of the project are $1,605,000 with estimated cost of issuance, including the capitalized interest less interest earnings of $170,000, resulting in total estimated project cost of $1,775,000. In the following paragraph, it also references then the anticipated impact on the debt service fund rate and the amount of 0.0636 per 100 assessed valuation based on the AV of $805,748,671.
Where would we be without this? Without this project resolution?
We're looking at a negative in the accounts for the year end,
Which we can't do.
Which is not allowed
No, it's not allowed by.
by statute.
And then with this though, if we approve this, we can still go back in and look at where we want as far as payback, correct?
Yes.
Well, I make a motion, we adopt the project resolution.
I'll second that.
We have first and second. Does anybody else have any more discussion on that? All right, all in favor, raise your hand. All right. Thank you for everything on that one. Hearing for additional appropriation.
So in order, one of the next steps was if we were to proceed with the bond issuance and everything, then we have to have an approval of additional appropriation. Again, approving the resolution does not commit us to anything, but we can't spend unless we get the additional appropriation approved by DLGF. So this step puts everything in order. That will be okay when it's received, rather than have to wait for that stuff, that part of the process.
I make a motion, we accept the adoption of the additional appropriation resolution.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Not all in favor, raise your hand. And then finally, recommend adoption of the final board resolution.
Final
No,
bond resolution.
Bond resolution, I'm sorry.
Okay, sorry, that. So that's in there. I'm sorry, I don't know how far back in the pages, but after the additional appropriation, then the bond resolution is listed there, along with the agreement for services of registrar and paying agent, and the continuing disclosure agreement. Again, part of the process of issuance of reporting.
All right, well, I make a motion to approve the bond resolution.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any other discussion? Not all in favor, raise your hand. All right. So that takes care of that. Is there any other?
Not related to that.
No patron comments?
None.
Okay, new business. Recommend approval of the Petersburg Elementary, Winslow Elementary Student Handbook for 25-26.
So you have these, and they're actually, the high school, middle school, then the elementary, so I apologize, I reversed the order in the scanning. It, as you can see.
Thank
it
you.
took me- Thanks, Jeff. Primary area, within the handbooks, there were some things with recent legislation, that needed to be removed. The recent policy that was just added on criminal organization activity is now no longer required and can come out of the handbook. The bullying policy that is listed in the handbook reflects the previous policy, not the one that was most recently approved. So in all books, that needs replaced with C200. And then we have added, sorry, and each of them have them in a slightly different spot. The high school had a section on e-learning day policies and how notifications for school cancellations or delays. Those two sections were outdated and need to come out. There is another reference to student surveys. It needs updated with policy C225. Okay, so one of the items being added under the section of student discipline, item 4 is bullying. There were 6 items already listed. A 7th has been added and says the following measures may be implemented when bullying occurs. First infraction, the offending student will meet in person with building administrator, and the administrator will explain what defines bullying for the student's understanding. Parent or guardian will be contacted by administrator. Second infraction, the offending student will receive appropriate punishment up to and including an in-school suspension. Parent guardian will have a face-to-face meeting with the administration. Student must write a 2-page essay on bullying and provide that to the administrator. If a student refuses to do the essay, additional punishment will follow as appropriate. Third infraction is the offending student will receive appropriate punishment up to and including an expulsion hearing. The matter may be referred to the local prosecutor. And below that is noted in bold, any student falsely reporting should follow the same procedure depending on the severity of the issue. The infraction may lead to the referral of the matter to the local prosecutor. A couple pages over, there was a reference under discipline infractions, level 3, item 10. It mentioned any issues reported by a web monitoring service, and it specifically listed the program BARC. Since we do sometimes change, we have BARC, we also have LineWise. Any other web monitoring, we felt like removing the name. We still want to keep the web monitoring that item, but we just don't think it's necessary to list the specific program title. Then a couple pages back is a sexual harassment policy. It needs removed and replaced with policy A100 to be consistent with our current guidelines. Just double checking. Okay, I don't believe there's any other, yeah. And then basically all of the policies that were mentioned that need to be updated and replaced are consistent in the middle school and the high school, or in the middle school and elementary. And then the language regarding first offense, second offense, and third offense on the infractions is also consistent language across all handbooks.
So that's it, that's on the high school, middle school student handbook.
Technically, it's high school, middle school, and elementary if you want to roll it
Yeah,
together.
we can.
Sorry.
Yeah, we can. Well, I will make a motion to adopt the student handbook for the grade schools and the middle school and high school all in one motion. With that, I also want to thank, with that motion, I want to thank Chris and Skip for working together with everybody involved on the bullying policy to get that taken care of.
I'd like to also thank our attorney for going over everything to make sure we are all legal with everybody. So,
Yes.
wow. I'll second that
We have a
motion.
motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor, raise your hand.
All right.
Okay. Okay, recommend approval of support staff handbook.
This is, we usually review annually. However, as you can see, the last approval was 2023. It has been reviewed and updated based on recommendations from the policy changes, and we've done a lot with the church Hill and Lincoln. So items have been highlighted, and I think if you've gone through, you can see what's what, but I bring it to you for recommendation.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Not all in favor, raise your hand. All right, recommend approval of support staff wage scale for 25-26.
So that is, again, approved annually, and so that is immediately following the pink page divider. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Trust me.
I get it. All right. We've been consistent on our wages off of teacher contracts in the past, correct?
Yes, and this is a bargaining year, so essentially everybody's starting the year status quo until we get done negotiating.
All right, I'll make a motion, we approve the support staff wage scale for 25-26.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Not all in favor, raise your hand. Recommend approval of non-renewal of contract. On behalf of the Board of Trustees of the Pike County School Corporation, I move to non-renew Mr. Dan Gaffney's contract as building principal for the Pike Central High School effective at the end of the contract period. I further move that the superintendent issue to Mr. Gaffney written notice of the board's decision to non-renew his administrator contract with the Pike County School Corporation. That is my motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Not all in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? Passed. All right. Recommend approval of legislative updates to policies.
So you have a list in front of you. These are all reflective of the legislative updates. I did ask for confirmation if the updates could go with one reading or with two. The response was, that's a good question. So essentially, the advice from the attorney with Church and Hiddle, and Grant, you're welcome to offer any other suggestions, but given that they're legislative, led, sorry, I'm a blank, but since everything here is a result of recent legislation changes, so the board can choose to waive second reading, so legislative things can immediately get in place and not have to wait until the August meeting to be read for a second reading. So that is your choice, and you can do it with all of them. You can do it with whichever ones you feel are relevant. Initially, we were looking primarily at C-125 and C-175 because of legal settlement and attendance. Here, C-200 has now been updated to align with some new legislation. So to be honest, most of the updates out of legislation are minor. Like for the board membership, it changed eligibility to be on the board from 21 to 18. So I feel like, the key things that are being proposed as changes are not something like I'm bringing to you as saying it's inconsistent or not working.
Is it correct that with the exception of that board membership one, that all the rest of them have been approved within the last, since the fall?
That could be. So,
because I think that's part when we were looking at them originally, it's like, well, these all just got updated. They're new anyways.
There's no requirement. I don't mind waiving the second reading as long as the rest of the board feels.
Make a motion on that, please.
Huh?
Make a motion on that.
Yeah, well, we can just make a motion to approve it with waiving the second reading. Yeah, I just wanted to put that out there.
Good with that.
So, okay, I'll make a motion that we go ahead and approve the legislative updates with the waiving of the second reading. If that,
I have no issues with it.
you have no issues? Okay.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Not all in favor, raise your hand. Other? Huh? Anything under other?
no, but I will note that with that approval, we have a full, again, an updated full policy manual. So probably next month, you might have a Christmas present sitting
More.
at your place sitting.
Okay,
But no, there's no items else.
okay. Resignations, retirements, and leave of absence.
I have resignation from Lainey Graham. She had worked as an instructional assistant at the middle school through the last school year as a OCU student in their partnership in their program. She has been approved for a teaching position in Linton, so she has submitted her resignation. And then Candy Rybold has also submitted a resignation from her position as instructional assistant at the high school. And I believe she has another job, which is why she submitted that.
Make a motion to accept those.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Not all in favor, raise your hand. Appointments and hires.
Have a recommendation from Missy Schulteis to hire Alicia Willis and Kaylee Burnham, both for 4-hour positions at Pike Central. And then the last meeting, we approved Bethany Gillespie to start on July 31st, but with the first meeting and cleaning day being on the 30th, we need to amend her start date to the 30th. We have a recommendation from Dave Chestnut to hire Jenna Vickers as a full-time bus driver for 25-26. We also have a recommendation from him for a driver, Casey Ward, for 25-26. At this time, we're looking at approximately 3 hours a day for her position, as it's in support of an IEP student, getting them to school and working with them before going home. And then I have a recommendation for Mrs. Diana Eigel to cover a maternity leave.
I make a motion to approve.
I second
We have a motion and a second on the appointments. Any other discussion? Not all in favor, raise your hand. All right. Professional leading. Other? Nope. Superintendent comments.
I had messaged, sent an email to all of you as we've been talking about the legislative changes. There has been a lot of chatter about attendance guidelines changing. There's many of the features that we were already compliant with, but some of the key areas are the categories and reasons how absences are classified. So I had sent you by email the attendance guidelines, kind of a synopsis, and we plan to post that out on social media. I know some other schools have already started doing that, but that is something we want to get out there to our parents as well. Then I also wanted to mention, as we go into the year, we have met, one of the legislative changes is a change to the evaluation plan. We no longer have to follow the RISE model. So we have done an initial meeting with the discussion team to begin looking at if we're going to propose a change to our evaluation plan. So you may have that. We're looking at if it's going to go in place for this year, we'd like to bring it to you here August or September, sooner the better. But also wanted to mention we had a safety drill last Thursday. Huge thank you. Don Lindcooler served as a kind of a coordinator of it, did a lot of work getting things prepared. Sheriff McKinney and his team, Chief Mills for the city, firefighters, EMA, EMS, the county health department, so many took place in it or participated in it. It was good. Gave us a lot of talking points. We did have a group, Sheriff's Department from Davis County was here as well. They were very impressed with what we were trying to communicate and do. They were also impressed with the rapport between the school personnel and the various community agencies. So I do want to give a huge shout out. Thank you to them. There's a night out on August 4th. You should see that in the paper. It is in recognition of a lot of our responders. The sheriff and EMA had reached out and said, we'd like to do this to recognize our folks in the community. So they're actually going to hold it on Pike Central grounds on the Monday before school starts. So it's going to be treated as a kickoff for back to school bash too. I think that's it.
Okay. No, there you are.
Ready to hit the button.
All right, board member comments.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second to, oh, what? You had something?
Welcome, Terry.
Oh, yes, yeah. Well, still board member.
It's a lot better place than I was yesterday, I can tell you that. I would like to say prayers to the Jana Brumfield and her family.
Yes.
My age class of 1981, and I believe she spent some time at our high school working with kids. Very nice person and very tragic, and certainly want to wish their family all the best that we can.
Thank you.
Try it again.
All right, we had a motion and a second. All in favor, raise your hand. Meeting adjourned.